Welcome back to the Adrenal Fatigue Podcast. It's Danielle and myself, Angela, here, and we're so excited to have this conversation today about adrenal nourishment. Welcome, Danielle.
Hi, Angela. This is going to be lots of fun.
Yes, this is an important topic and one we tend to get many questions on. It's easy to feel overwhelmed with food and especially supplements with so many fad diets and supplement options these days. So today we're going to look at how to nourish your body with food, herbs, nutrients to optimize your adrenal recovery. We hope that you'll leave this episode today with a firm grasp on where to begin when it comes to making changes to your diet and also how to start thinking about supplements so you can safely avoid wasting time, energy, and of course money on those shiny objects that might not be ideal for your current state and in some cases burn you out even more. So Danielle, excited to have you here and share your wisdom. Should we get started?
Yeah, let's do it. And just to give you guys a quick background on my experience working with supplement and herbs. I'm a trained and certified holistic nutritionist. And when I was finishing up my school for almost 4 years, I worked in this really amazing compounding pharmacy that had one of the largest natural dispensaries in Canada. And so I learned so much about the different herbs and the different supplements and different nutrients and saw how they were helpful for people in different scenarios and in different stages of stress. And I've really walked away from that experience. And I mean, that was several years ago now, but using what I learned there in practice and really seeing what works, what doesn't. And a lot of the common mistakes that people tend to make with supplements, I saw it firsthand working in that store. So I'm really excited for what we're going to bring to the table today. And like Angela said, just give you kind of a roadmap of where to begin with food and with supplements so you can feel really confident with these first really important steps of your adrenal recovery.
Awesome. A wealth of knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you.
So what foods should people with adrenal fatigue focus on?
So really, and I know we say this time and time again, is adrenal fatigue and burnout truly is a state of depletion on so many levels, right? And nutritionally, it's no difference. We really want to think about building the body back up. And this is going to come up as we have this conversation today. But when your body's under stress, we just use up nutrients so much more rapidly. So let's think about food first and how we can use food to build ourselves back up. So obviously that's not going to be just like eating all the processed foods and that kind of standard American diet. We want to think about the colorful foods, nice pasture raised meats if we can, quality oils, healthy fats, getting the organ meats if you can in there. They're just so nutrient dense if they're well sourced. And just looking for that whole foods diet really is what's going to be the best optimal diet for nourishing the body back up and building your resilience and strength once again.
That's so great. And I love how it's pretty simple, right? I mean, it really does help simplify the food picture because like we always say, it doesn't have to be complicated.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be like a fad diet. It doesn't have to include fasting. I mean, it can. It could look a little different for everybody, but you really just want the basis to be whole foods and good foods and quality foods because you are what you eat, right? And so you want to just be eating good quality fuel, and food is fuel again. So when you're tired, you want to fuel yourself with good stuff. So I think it takes a lot of the pressure off, but it's almost like it's just so simple that for some people, they're like, well, I want to be more specific about it. But I think it's great to just kind of step back and just like look at this big picture and start there.
I agree. And I think even more so is like just thinking about this, if you're listening now, how can you actually fit these foods into your daily life? You know, and we have obviously lots of blogs and other podcast episodes about this kind of thing. But I think that's really a good question to ask ourselves is how we're going to start fitting them in. What are our favorite, foods? What are our favorite vegetables to eat? What are our favorite whole foods? And how do we incorporate them into our life? And I know you have your amazing cookbook that we have, which people have access to and has amazing recipes and meal plans and such. So that's a really great place maybe if people are looking for more specifics on all of this.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. If you are looking for specifics, you could certainly find it there. And I love that. Just thinking about what do you want to add in? What do you want to take away also, maybe if there are some foods in there that aren't serving you? And then also having fun with it. I feel like it's really easy to get caught eating the same foods over and over. But if we're thinking about nutrient density, we also want to be getting those nutrients from varied sources, right? So maybe when you go to the store, it's like pick up a veggie or a piece of meat that you haven't, or a type of fish that you haven't had before, and just get kind of curious and try new foods and just replenish your body and kind of see how you can make it fun.
I love that. I was thinking about, as you were talking, like, adding a fun, colorful vegetable to your eggs, right? Like making a scramble, or, how do you get those greens into your smoothie? Or, there is simple ways that we can do this that don't create a lot of extra work and a lot of extra time and even money. So I love that. Let's go back to making things simple.
Yeah. Simple
Okay,
whole
so
foods.
yeah, whole foods, colorful whole foods. Okay, so let's kind of jump over to supplements, because I know many people are on this supplement, I don't know, I would say roller coaster, and also have a lot of frustration around supplements because they either have a lot of supplements and they're not working for them, or they're costing a lot of money, or some people have a lot of sensitivities to supplements. So this is kind of a big topic for us. And so I would love for you just to dive in and give us your take and your philosophy on supplements.
Yeah, and this is fully loaded, a very fully loaded question and topic. And I always say, if you're coming to us, and we've talked to countless people like this, where they're spending literally $500 plus a month on these supplements and still not really seeing the progress that they would hope. Like, I really feel like that's kind of a red flag. If you've been doing something for a long time, especially spending that money, something is not being addressed in the right way, in my opinion. So I just kind of like check what you're currently doing. And then when it comes to where to start, before you go out and buy any supplement, think about what we just talked about adrenal fatigue and burnout being a state of depletion, and think about what your current nutrient status is like. If you're working with a professional, like, you can certainly get that tested and get those insights like on paper, which is really powerful. But a lot of us could probably tell based on how our diet's been up to this point, like, have we been eating this varied, colorful whole foods diet, or has it been a little bit more processed stuff, maybe lacking on the veggies and the phytonutrients? Like, do we think those nutrition stores are robust? And if not, that's really where we want to start. So we want to start with the foundations. So it could be a really good multivitamin. I mean, just getting your baselines covered. It could be B complex. When it comes to the adrenals, like I mentioned earlier, when we're under stress, we use certain nutrients up a lot more quickly. So to highlight some of those nutrients just at a high level for today, vitamin C, really like candy for the adrenals. We use it up really quickly. The more cortisol made, the more vitamin C you're going to use. And so it's actually used along the whole adrenal cascade, and as an important nutrient that's used within the adrenal cortex as well. So you want to make sure that you're getting enough vitamin C. I think a lot of people already know this. It's one of the more common adrenal supplements that people tend to turn to, but super supportive. And I always recommend getting your vitamin C from whole foods if you can, or a whole food source of vitamin C that has like a whole complex within it, just so your body really knows how to use it and can break it down more effectively. Other vitamins that are really important when it comes to adrenal recovery are the B complex. So those B vitamins are really going to help nourish and optimize your nervous system. And again, you're using these up a lot more quickly when you're under stress. So supplementing can help your overall resiliency and support adrenal health at the same time. And then, of course, like when you're eating a whole foods diet, you'll probably be getting more of these vitamins in naturally, but supplementing can really help as well. Vitamin E is another one that might surprise you. It's more indirectly related, but it is indirectly related to numerous enzymatic reactions in the adrenal cascade as well. When it comes to like quenching free radicals and protecting the cells. So it also helps vitamin C work better. And then minerals, especially magnesium, are really important. Again, we use them up a lot more quickly. All of these we're using up more quickly when we're under stress, but deficiencies are really common as well. That potassium sodium balance is really important. And a lot of deficiencies when it comes to minerals can be behind a lot of the really common symptoms that people experience when they're burnt out. Restoring your mineral balance and even the vitamins that I mentioned above, and just the nutrient stores in general, is really going to help your body build up its resiliency once again. So it can help you manage the stress that you're enduring all the better. It just brings us back to that very first point, like where do you start with supplements? And it's your foundations, right? And so these are some of the foundations. If you do need support though, when it comes to vitamins, when it comes to herbs, which we're going to talk about in a second, we always recommend just kind of working with a practitioner, somebody who knows your story, can look at your blood work in an ideal situation, look at your testing, your test results if you have them, or perhaps run them if you would like to test them, and really create a plan based on what your body needs right now. So we can make sure that we're like building you back up with the most bang for your buck and the most like, in the most like streamlined way when it comes to your time and energy. So as we dabble into, I know some of the upcoming questions, Angela, will have to do with the herbal side of things, just being mindful that these aren't necessarily safe for everybody. And we're not here to spew like medical advice. This is more just for your reference and information on how to begin. So before starting any new supplement plan, just a little disclaimer, like please check with your doctor and make sure that these choices, if you were to integrate any of these, would be okay for you and your really unique situation. So I just want to throw that out there before we even start talking about them.
Good point. Yes. Okay, great. So you talked about vitamin C, vitamin B and B complex, vitamin E, and magnesium. Very, very important. Thank you for breaking those down and also kind of giving a little bit of a background about why they're important. And so cool. So those are really about starting with the basics, like you said. And I think we can easily jump to things like adaptogens and other herbs. And so we're going to talk about that. But I think I love that we really focus on this being the foundation. And then from there, once you know that you're kind of dialed in with the basic minerals and vitamins, then you might move to something else. So that's the big question, is like, when are adaptogens good? And like, what is your philosophy on that and your advice?
Yeah. So an adaptogen is basically a nutrient or a herb that helps the body adapt to stress better. And I truly think they do have their time and place, but they're one of those things that we can be so quick to run out and grab an adaptogen because there's many beautiful different formulas made up with different adaptogens for stress. But oftentimes when we go to adaptogens first, and we actually have a whole masterclass on this where we teach this in like a lot more detail, which we'd love to share the link in the show notes if you want to kind of get more of a deep dive on this topic. But just keeping it high level, like, the adaptogens really work to kind of invigorate and nourish your body. They can be really great balancers. But I notice, and this is my problem with adaptogens, not that I don't love them, because I do, but people tend to kind of gravitate towards them and then use them as a crutch without changing their lifestyle. So you're using these adaptogens to basically prop yourself up, and you're not necessarily getting to the root of why you were having these symptoms in the first place. And that's where I think there can be some dissonance, because people are expecting this to be kind of the magic pill that's going to help them feel better and fix their hormones. And it's not always the case. There's usually some lifestyle work that needs to be done behind the scenes as well. But I mean, they can be very powerful. So it just really depends on what your situation is when it comes to adaptogens. But always starting with the foundations, and then like there's another section that I prefer you look at first before even going to the adaptogens. So if we were to think of it of like 3 different stages, we started with the foundations. Adaptogens would be like number 3. So next, maybe we could talk about number 2, which is nervines.
Yeah. Okay. So Nervine tonics, that's number 2 after the basics. So, what are Nervine tonics and what's the difference? So let's dive in.
Yeah, and I realized I didn't give any examples of what adaptogens are. So when it comes, I just want to kind of like quickly preface that before I get into the nervines, just so you can see the difference. So Adaptogenic herbs are things like rhodiola, ginseng, maca, eleuthero, astragalus, licorice, schisandra, tulsi or holy basil, shijalt, shatavari, moringa, stuff like that. And then nervine tonics are types of herbs that are intended to really nourish and support your central nervous system. So not so much adapting to stress, but supporting your nervous system and helping to kind of calm your body down and really helping to restore balance and just restfulness in the body, which is so important when you've been stuck in a really wound up chronic state of stress. So a lot of the times, like thinking foundations, number one, and then number two, a lot of the times we really just need to calm our bodies down. So this is actually my favorite place to go next after those foundations before going for those balancing adaptogens.
I was just thinking of, all this talk about the nervous system and nervines. I was thinking about, it's sort of like this way of, they say that pills don't teach skills, right? And we talk about how important it is to help the regulation of the nervous system and really creating a lifestyle choices and lifestyle practices every day that are going to support your nervous system and love up your vagus nerve. And so it just reminds me of this idea of sometimes it does help to have these nervine tonics or these nervines to kind of remind us what it feels like to feel calm, right? Like we might need that a little bit as a support and to be able to kind of bring in some of those more of those practices of yoga, meditation, mindfulness, because some of us are so revved up. So I feel like those things are really important. And sometimes these nervines can come in and sort of help out with that, get things going and calm things down, the nervous system down a little bit.
I love that so much. I think that's a really great point. And somebody once said to me, like, have you ever tried meditating on after a cup of coffee? And I mean, a lot of people do that, like as part of their morning routine, like you might have some coffee and try to meditate, but you're so revved up. But if you were to have something more like matcha or one of these lovely herbs that I'm about to share with you that are more nervine tonic and nervous system calming, you might find that you're able to just really focus on your breath or focus on your meditation with like way more ease because you're not so revved up.
So you're going to give us some examples of nervine tonics.
Yeah. So chamomile is a big one. A lot of us are kind of familiar with that already as being a really calming herb that we could have at night, but you can have it any time of day. Milky oat seed is another really nice one. St. John's wort, valerian, lavender, passion flower, kava kava, California poppy, catnip, not just for cats. It's actually really relaxing for humans as well. And lemon balm, one of my personal favorites. And then, so, I mean, those are the herbal type nervine tonics. And because there's other nutrients out there that aren't necessarily herbs, they're more nutrients, but things like L-theanine or GABA or phosphatidylserine, there are other nice ones that could be really calming for the nervous system as well. And so sometimes you can just find these really nice calming blends, calming formulas. You can find these different herbs, as teas, but also as tinctures or supplements as well. And that can be like a really nice way to just integrate some of these really relaxing nervine tonics or calming nutrients into your world with the foundations, just to like, you're building up and making sure that you have robust nutrient stores while your body's under stress. And then you're really working to calm that stress. So does that make sense, this kind of process that we're taking when it comes to supplements to you so far, Angela?
Okay, so just to recap, it's like a 3-tiered process, right? We have the basic vitamins and minerals, and then nervine tonics, and then number 3 would be the adaptogens. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So what are your favorite herbal supplements?
So this is another really loaded question. And to be honest, like I have some personal favorites that I can share, but when it comes to you picking something, depending on kind of where you're at, what stage of burnout you're in and what you're up against right now with your hormones, it could look a little bit different for everybody. So I really wanted to share like this different process that you can kind of look at and kind of check off the list, like foundations are good. Am I calming? Okay, now I can focus on maybe a specific adaptogen for certain hormonal things. And so when it comes to my favorites, it's really going to depend on the situation for some people. And then I also want to throw out there for people, not to make things more complicated, but this is just why it's helpful to have somebody working with you who really knows what they're doing when it comes to this sort of stuff. because if you have been just diving into the adaptogens and kind of working on the hormonal piece, but maybe you have an underlying infection or underlying gut issues or something that hasn't been addressed at another root level, it could keep your hormones in turmoil, right? So you're going to want to step back and address that other really big thing. So for you, there might be a totally different herbal supplement depending on your scenario that would be way more effective than like a nice adaptogenic blend of maybe a mix of these adaptogens and nervine tonics that are out there. So I just want to throw that out there, not to make things again more complicated, but just to share that it's going to look different for everybody.
And that's why it's really helpful to be working with practitioners, with people that can give you that support, that outside look in and evaluate it.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's nice, like we can all start with like a cup of chamomile or a cup of lemon balm. And I think even just like treating yourself to a really nice cup of tea, go to a local tea shop and just like pick something, or even those like sleepy time teas. A lot of the times they have a lot of the nervine tonics in them direct already. So you can kind of have fun just maybe with like a simple cup of tea and your foundations. Really, really nice and often a safe place to start. And then you can kind of get more specific or a little bit more hardcore if you need to, but recommending doing that alongside a professional just to make sure that, again, you're saving time, money, and energy and avoiding any setbacks. I will say there's some adaptogenic formulas out there that are really stimulating. And so this is why they're a little bit further down on the list, because you don't necessarily want to be stimulating an already really stimulated body. So in some cases, going for these adaptogenic formulas that are more stimulating, you can actually burn your adrenals out more. And this is unfortunately something we've seen a bit in practice. Like it just overstimulates people and creates more stress and burns the adrenals faster. And so it's not necessarily where you want to start in certain situations, but they do, again, have their time and places. And depending on the type of formula, like you might be able to incorporate some of the stimulating mixed with some of the calming. So it's really just going to depend on the formula, because there's a lot of different stuff available out there today.
Yeah, and we're also biochemically diverse, that it really does sometimes take a little bit of trial and error too, right? And looking at it from a perspective of, or just looking at it from a, and it really helps to be for someone to actually support you and looking at that from the outside in and getting that clear picture of what you need in this time, in this moment.
Exactly. But it is fun to think about. And I think it's fun to think about just this whole big picture in general, right? So look at your life when it comes to nutrition, asking what we were talking about earlier, like where do I think that I can build things up with food? And then how could I support my body with supplements if food hasn't been on point up to this point? And then do I need to calm down? Oftentimes in this adrenal community, the answer is yes. So like, okay, what am I going to pick to calm down and what is safe for me, right? So before I go and grab a herb, making sure that it doesn't contraindicate with any of the medications you might already be on or might be taking, but thinking about like, is it a cup of tea? Do you want something a little bit more hardcore? Do you want something that's maybe more sleep focused or something more during the day, like a nice L-theanine to level you out? There's so many fun things out there that can support us. And I think it's just, we've never lived in a better time where we can access all this stuff in such an abundant way, but there's always something nice knowing that you feel really confident in the plan that you have set forth for yourself. So if that's something you guys need support with, that's something that we totally love supporting you with inside our Adrenal Recovery Revolution. That's our monthly membership program where we actually give you full protocols for the different stages of adrenal fatigue with different supplements that would be generally safe for, I mean, it's always going to be case dependent, but we give you that example of like the perfect protocol for each stage, and you can do with that what you will. But it's broken down really clearly in there if you need more support. And then we can address your more specific questions on the weekly group coaching calls that we do within that program. So that could be a really cool option too, for those of you who kind of want more support, but maybe aren't necessarily working with integrative practitioners just yet. So we'd love to see you in there if that calls to you.
Definitely. Great. Well, that was wonderful. Thank you for really breaking that down and simplifying it. I think that made it very, very clear. I hope that was helpful to you all. I think it will be. And if you're interested in the membership, you can learn more about it by clicking the link in the caption below. And thank you so much, Danielle, for your wisdom today, for sharing this three-tiered process with us and really simplifying everything.
It's my pleasure. I love this topic. So I hope that it's served, and I'll see you guys all next time.